He was just a struggling single dad working double shifts at a downtown diner, counting pennies to keep the lights on, when he saw a desperate young woman with a hungry baby outside in the freezing rain. He didn't hesitate. He handed her his last $20, the money meant for his own daughter's breakfast. To everyone watching, it was just another invisible act of kindness in a cold city. But that woman wasn't who she appeared to be. And when she walked back into his life 3 weeks later, she didn't come alone. She came with lawyers, cameras, security guards, and an offer that would change everything he thought he knew about survival, sacrifice, and second chances. What happened next would expose a billion-dollar conspiracy, uncover a hidden past neither of them expected, and prove that sometimes the smallest act of compassion can unlock the biggest miracles. This isn't just a story about money. It's about the moment when giving everything away brings everything back. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed. Because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. The November wind cut through downtown Seattle like broken glass, sharp and unforgiving. Outside the Bluebird Diner, neon lights flickered against rain-slicked pavement, casting pink and blue reflections that danced with every gust. It was the kind of night that made people walk faster, heads down, collars up, focused only on getting somewhere warm. Inside the diner, the air smelled like coffee, bacon grease, and the faint sweetness of maple syrup. Red vinyl booths lined the walls, their edges worn smooth by decades of elbows and late-night conversations. The jukebox in the corner played something old and bluesy, barely audible over the clatter of dishes and the hum of tired voices. Zoe Lewis stepped through the glass door at exactly 9:47 p.m., and for a moment, the entire diner seemed to pause. She wore a charcoal wool coat that fell to her knees, tailored so precisely it looked like it had been designed for her body alone. Beneath it, a cream silk blouse and dark slacks, both immaculate despite the storm outside. Her auburn hair was pulled back in a low twist, revealing sharp cheekbones and eyes the color of dark honey. At 39, Zoe Lewis was the founder and CEO of Meridian Health Solutions, a biomedical tech company valued at $2.3 billion. Her face had graced the cover of Fortune, Time, and Bloomberg Businessweek. She'd been called a visionary, a disruptor, a genius, but tonight she just looked exhausted. The hostess, a young woman with bright pink streaks in her hair, approached cautiously. "Table for one." Zoe nodded. "Right this way." She was led to a booth near the back, away from the windows, away from the door. The kind of spot someone chooses when they don't want to be seen. Zoe slid into the seat and immediately pulled out her phone. 17 unread emails, 6 missed calls from her CFO, 3 texts from her attorney, and 1 message from her ex-husband's publicist that she deleted without reading. She locked the screen and placed the phone face down on the table. Across the diner, near the kitchen entrance, Sean Douglas balanced 3 plates on his left arm and carried a coffee pot in his right hand. He moved with quiet efficiency, refilling cups without being asked, delivering orders with a nod and a soft smile. He was 34, tall and lean, with sandy brown hair that curled slightly at the edges and eyes the color of storm clouds. He wore the standard uniform, black pants, white button-down shirt, black apron tied at the waist. But there was something about the way he carried himself that didn't quite match the setting. A steadiness, a presence. He delivered the plates to table 6, exchanged a few words with an elderly couple, then turned toward the coffee station to refill the pot. That's when he saw her. The woman in the expensive coat, sitting alone in the back booth, staring at nothing. He didn't recognize her face, didn't know her name, but he recognized the look. The hollow-eyed exhaustion of someone who'd been running too long and forgotten why they started. Sean wiped his hands on his apron and walked over. "Evening," he said quietly, pulling out a small notepad. "Can I get you something to drink?" Zoe looked up. For a split second their eyes met, and something unspoken passed between them. Not attraction, not curiosity, just recognition. The kind two tired people give each other in the middle of a long night. "Coffee," she said. "Black." "Coming right up." He turned to leave, but she spoke again. "Do you have anything stronger?" Sean paused, then smiled faintly. "Not legally, but the coffee's strong enough to feel like whiskey." A ghost of a smile touched her lips. "That'll do." He returned a moment later with a steaming mug and set it down gently in front of her. She wrapped both hands around it, absorbing the warmth. "You look like you've had a long day," Sean said. Zoe glanced up. "Is it that obvious?" "Only to someone who knows what long days look like." She studied him for a moment. "And you do?" He shrugged. "I've had a few." There was something in his tone that made her believe him. Not pity, not false cheer, just honesty. "What do you recommend?" she asked, gesturing toward the laminated menu. "Depends. You eating to survive or eating to feel better?" "Is there a difference?" "Always." Zoe considered that. "Then I guess I'm eating to feel better." Sean nodded. "Grilled cheese with tomato soup. Sounds simple, but it's the kind of meal that reminds you things can still be warm and good." She blinked, surprised by the answer. "All right, I'll trust you." "Good call," he said, then walked away. As Sean clipped the order to the kitchen line, the cook, a gruff man in his 50s named Pete, glanced over. "She famous or something?" Sean shook his head. "Don't know, don't care." Pete grunted. "You're too nice for your own good, Douglas." Maybe, but niceness was one of the few things Sean had left that still felt like his. In the back corner booth near the restrooms, a small figure sat cross-legged on the bench seat, coloring in a worn notebook. Harper Douglas, 8 years old, with her father's storm-gray eyes and her late mother's dark curls. She wore faded jeans, sneakers with mismatched laces, and a purple hoodie 2 sizes too big. She looked up as Sean passed by. "Who's the fancy lady?" Harper whispered. Sean crouched down beside her. "Just someone having a rough night." Harper tilted her head, studying the woman across the diner. "She looks sad." "Maybe. Are you going to make her feel better?" Sean smiled and tapped his daughter's notebook. "That's the plan. Now finish your homework." Harper wrinkled her nose. "I'm drawing you as a superhero." "Oh yeah? What's my power?" "You make people smile even when they don't want to." Something tightened in Sean's chest. He kissed the top of her head. "Keep drawing, kiddo." 20 minutes later, Sean delivered the grilled cheese and soup to Zoe's table. She looked at the plate, then at him. "This smells better than I expected." "Don't sound so surprised," Sean said with a grin. She picked up the sandwich, took a bite and paused. Then another. For the first time all night, the tension in her shoulders eased just slightly. "You were right," she said quietly. "Usually am when it comes to comfort food." Zoe set the sandwich down and looked at him directly. "You don't talk like a waiter." Sean raised an eyebrow. "How's a waiter supposed to talk?" "I don't know. Less like a therapist, maybe." He smiled. "Used to be a crisis counselor. Before this." Her eyes sharpened with interest. "What happened?" "Life," he said simply. "Sometimes you choose a new path." Sometimes it chooses you. Zoe understood that better than she wanted to admit. She ate slowly, savoring each bite. And for the first time in weeks, she wasn't thinking about board meetings or lawsuits or quarterly projections. She was just sitting in a diner, eating soup and talking to a stranger who somehow felt less like a stranger than most people she knew. Sean refilled her coffee without being asked. "Thank you," she said. "Anytime." As he walked away, Zoe watched him move through the diner, checking on other tables, joking quietly with the cook, pausing to ruffle his daughter's hair. There was something about him that didn't fit the setting, a gentleness that seemed intentional, like it had been chosen rather than inherited. She didn't know his name yet, didn't know his story, but she would. Outside, the rain intensified, drumming against the windows like 1,000 tiny fists. The world beyond the glass was dark and cold and unforgiving. But inside the Bluebird diner, beneath the flickering neon and the smell of fresh coffee, two people sat in separate corners of the same small world, unaware that their lives were about to collide in ways neither of them could predict. And in the back booth, a little girl with mismatched shoelaces drew a picture of her father wearing a cape. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time. So if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. The night shift at the Bluebird Diner had a rhythm all its own. Between 10 and midnight, the crowd thinned to insomniacs, truck drivers, and people who didn't want to go home yet. Sean had learned to read them all. The man at the counter nursing his 4th cup of decaf because his apartment was too quiet. The college student in the corner booth with textbooks spread like a fortress. The woman by the window who ordered pie she never ate, just stared at her phone and waited for messages that never came. Sean understood them because he'd been all of them at different points in his life. He wiped down table 4 and glanced toward the back booth where Zoe Lewis still sat, her soup half finished, her phone now back in her hand. She scrolled through something with the focused intensity of someone trying to solve an impossible equation. Harper appeared at his elbow, tugging gently on his apron. "I finished my drawing," she announced, holding up her notebook. Sean looked down at the crayon sketch. It showed 2 stick figures, one tall with a cape, one small with pigtails, standing in front of what looked like a giant sandwich. "That's us?" he asked. Harper nodded proudly. "You're super, Dad. Your superpower is making the best grilled cheese in the galaxy." He laughed, a real laugh that came from somewhere deep. "The galaxy, huh? That's a lot of pressure. You can handle it." Sean crouched down to her level. "You good to hang out here for another hour? Then we'll head home." Harper glanced toward the window where rain streaked down the glass in diagonal rivers. "Can we walk, even if it's raining? You like the rain? Mom used to say rain washes the sad away." Sean's throat tightened. He reached out and tucked a curl behind her ear. "Yeah, she did say that." Harper smiled, then skipped back to her booth, already starting a new drawing. Sean stood and exhaled slowly. It had been 3 years since the accident. 3 years since a drunk driver ran a red light and took his wife, Emily, away from them in the span of a heartbeat. 3 years of learning how to be both mother and father, both strength and softness, both anchor and sail. He'd left his job as a crisis counselor 6 months after Emily died. The work, the emotional weight of other people's trauma on top of his own, had become unbearable. So he'd taken the first job he could find that offered flexible hours and let him keep Harper close. The Bluebird wasn't glamorous, but it paid enough to cover rent, groceries, and the occasional new pair of shoes when Harper outgrew the old ones. Pete rang the bell from the kitchen. "Order up, Douglas." Sean grabbed the highest plate, a burger and fries for table 2, and delivered it with a quick smile. As he turned back toward the kitchen, he noticed Zoe waving him over. He approached her table. "Need something?" She hesitated, then gestured to the seat across from her. "Do you have a minute?" Sean glanced around the diner. Only 5 tables occupied, all settled. He slid into the booth. "Everything okay with the food?" he asked. "It's perfect," Zoe said. "That's not why I asked you to sit." He waited. She folded her hands on the table. "You said you used to be a crisis counselor. What kind of crises?" Sean leaned back slightly. Suicide prevention hotline, domestic violence intervention, hostage negotiation support for the police. Basically, anywhere someone needed to talk instead of act. Zoe's eyes widened. That's not a small thing. No, but it mattered. "Why'd you leave?" He paused, choosing his words carefully. "After my wife died, I couldn't hold other people's pain anymore. I could barely hold my own." Zoe's expression softened. "I'm sorry." "It's all right. I'm still here. So is Harper." "Harper?" Sean nodded toward the back booth where his daughter sat drawing. "My daughter. 8 years old, smarter than me, funnier than me, keeps me honest." Zoe turned and looked at the little girl with the purple hoodie. Something flickered across her face, something unreadable. "She's lucky to have you," Zoe said quietly. "I'm the lucky one." They sat in silence for a moment. Then Zoe spoke again, her voice lower. "Do you ever feel like you're failing, even when you're doing everything right?" Sean met her eyes. "Every single day." She blinked, surprised by the honesty. "I wake up," Sean continued, "and I make breakfast. I walk Harper to school. I work 2 shifts. I help with homework. I tuck her in. And every night I lie awake wondering if I'm doing enough, if she'll remember her mom, if she'll grow up okay, if I'm screwing it all up." Zoe's voice was barely a whisper. "And what do you tell yourself?" "That showing up is half the battle. The other half is loving her enough to keep showing up tomorrow." Zoe looked down at her hands. Her throat worked, but no sound came out. Sean leaned forward slightly. "You're not just asking about me, are you?" She shook her head. "You want to talk about it?" Zoe laughed, but it was hollow. "I wouldn't even know where to start." "Start anywhere." She exhaled shakily. "I built a company from nothing, Meridian Health Solutions. We develop AI-driven diagnostic tools for underserved hospitals. We've saved thousands of lives, maybe tens of thousands. And right now, I'm on the verge of losing everything because the board thinks I'm a liability." Sean frowned. "Why?" "Because I refuse to sell patient data to a pharmaceutical conglomerate. Because I wouldn't compromise the mission for profit. And because my ex-husband, who happens to be on the board, is leading the charge to have me removed as CEO." Sean leaned back, processing. "That's not failure. That's integrity. Integrity doesn't pay legal fees." "No, but it lets you sleep at night." Zoe looked at him, really looked, and for the first time in months, she felt like someone actually saw her. Not the CEO, not the headline, just the exhausted woman trying to hold it all together. "I haven't slept well in a year," she admitted. Sean nodded. "I believe that." "How do you do it?" she asked. "How do you keep going when everything feels impossible?" He glanced toward Harper, who was now humming to herself, oblivious to the weight of the adult world. "I remember why I started," Sean said. "Not the career, not the accolades. The reason underneath it all. For me, it's her. For you, I'm guessing it's the people your company saves. Zoe nodded slowly. Hold on to that, Sean said. Everything else is just noise. Before Zoe could respond, the diner door swung open with a gust of cold wind. A young woman stumbled inside, drenched from the rain, holding a bundle wrapped in a thin blanket. She looked no older than 23, with hollow eyes and trembling hands. Pete looked up from the grill. The couple at table 6 stopped mid-conversation. Even Harper turned to look. The young woman stood just inside the doorway, water pooling at her feet, and her voice cracked as she spoke. Please, I just need something warm. For my baby. Anything. Sean was already on his feet. The diner fell into that particular kind of silence that happens when something uncomfortable forces its way into a comfortable space. The young woman stood shivering near the entrance, clutching the blanket-wrapped bundle to her chest. Her jeans were soaked through, her jacket inadequate for the November cold, and her sneakers squelched with every small shift of weight. Sean moved toward her slowly, hands visible, voice calm. The same tone he used to use on the crisis hotline when someone was close to the edge. Hey, he said gently. Come sit down. You're freezing. The woman's eyes darted around the diner, wary, defensive. I don't have money. I just need something for her. Please. She hasn't eaten since yesterday. Sean gestured toward an empty booth near the heater. Money doesn't matter right now. Sit. Let me get you both something warm. She hesitated, then slowly walked to the booth and slid in, still holding the bundle protectively. As she adjusted the blanket, a tiny face emerged, an infant, maybe 6 months old, with flushed cheeks and wide, frightened eyes. Harper whispered from her booth, Daddy, is the baby okay? Sean glanced back. Stay there, sweetheart. He turned to Pete, who was already moving, pulling out a bowl, ladling soup. No words needed. Pete had seen enough of life to know when to ask questions and when to just act. Sean grabbed a clean towel from behind the counter and brought it to the young woman. For your hair, he said. And what's your name? She took the towel hesitantly. Isabel. I'm Sean. That's Pete in the kitchen. You're safe here, Isabel. Her eyes welled up, but she blinked the tears back. I'm not trying to cause trouble. We've just been on the road for 2 days. I left Tacoma because my boyfriend, he got violent. I thought I could make it to my sister's place in Portland, but the bus broke down outside Seattle, and I used the last of my cash for diapers. Sean nodded, absorbing the story without judgment. You did the right thing. Getting out, protecting your baby. That took courage. Isabel looked down at the infant in her arms. Doesn't feel like courage. Feels like I'm failing her. You're here. You're asking for help. That's not failing. Pete appeared with a bowl of chicken noodle soup and a grilled cheese sandwich cut into small pieces. He set it down without a word, just a gruff nod, then returned to the kitchen. Isabel stared at the food like it was a mirage. Eat, Sean said. Please. She picked up the spoon with shaking hands and took a sip, then another. Then she broke off a piece of the sandwich and chewed slowly, tears now streaming freely down her face. Across the diner, Zoe Lewis watched the entire scene unfold. She'd been about to leave, had already gathered her coat, but now she sat frozen, unable to look away. She saw the way Sean moved, calm and unhurried. The way he didn't treat Isabel like a problem to be solved, but like a person who deserved dignity. And she saw the little girl in the purple hoodie peering over the back of her booth, watching her father with something that looked a lot like pride. Zoe's chest tightened. Sean returned to the counter and pulled out his wallet. Inside were 3 crumpled bills, a 10, a 5, and 5 ones. $20. The money he'd set aside for Harper's breakfast tomorrow and bus fare to her school. He didn't hesitate. He walked back to Isabel's table and placed the $20 bill beside her soup bowl. "There's a youth shelter about 4 blocks north of here," he said quietly. "Providence House. They take in mothers and infants. No questions, no judgment. This should cover a cab to get you there. Tell them Sean sent you. They know me." Isabel looked at the money, then at Sean, her face crumpling. "I can't take this." "You're not taking it. I'm giving it. There's a difference." "But what about you?" Sean smiled. "We'll be fine. You need it more." Isabel covered her mouth with one hand, the other still holding her baby. "Why are you doing this?" "Because someone did it for me once, and because it's the right thing to do." From across the diner, Zoe felt something crack open inside her chest. She watched this man, this waiter working a late-night shift in a rundown diner, give away what was probably the last of his money without a second thought. No cameras, no audience, no recognition, just kindness. Pete called from the kitchen, voice gruff but not unkind. "Douglas, I'm packing her some food to go. Sandwiches, fruit, couple bottles of water." Sean nodded his thanks. Isabel finished her soup, then stood cradling her baby. "I don't know how to thank you." "You just did. Now go get somewhere warm. And Isabel, you're going to be okay. Both of you." She nodded, clutching the $20 in the bag of food Pete handed her. As she walked toward the door, she paused and turned back. "You're a good man, Sean Douglas." Then she was gone, disappearing into the rain-soaked night. The diner settled back into its quiet rhythm. The couple at table 6 resumed their conversation. The college student returned to her textbooks. Harper went back to her drawing. But Zoe Lewis couldn't move. She stood slowly, slipping her coat on, and walked toward the counter where Sean was wiping down the coffee station. "That was your last $20, wasn't it?" she said. Sean glanced up. "How'd you know?" "I saw your wallet." He shrugged. "It's just money." "It's not just money when you don't have much of it." Sean met her eyes. She needed it more. Zoe opened her purse and pulled out 2 crisp $100 bills. "Take this, please." Sean shook his head. "I didn't do it for payback." "I know, but I'm not offering payback. I'm offering help the same way you helped her." "It's not the same." "Why not?" Sean hesitated. "Because you don't owe me anything." Zoe stepped closer. "And you didn't owe her anything either. But you helped anyway. Let me do the same." They stood in silence, the space between them filled with something unspoken. Finally, Sean smiled faintly. "You're stubborn." "I've been told." He took one of the $100 bills, folding it carefully. "One, and only because Harper needs new shoes." Zoe nodded, slipping the other bill back into her purse. "Fair enough." As she turned to leave, Sean called after her. "Zoe." She stopped. "Whatever fight you're in, don't quit. The world needs more people like you. People who choose integrity over profit." She looked back at him, her eyes glistening. "The world needs more people like you too." Then she walked out into the rain. Sean stood at the counter, watching her disappear into the darkness. Harper appeared beside him, tugging on his sleeve. "Did you just give away all our money?" she asked. "Yeah." "Are we going to be okay?" Sean picked her up, settling her on his hip. "Always, as long as we have each other." Harper rested her head on his shoulder. "You're the best super dad ever." He kissed her forehead and carried her back to their booth. Outside, the rain continued to fall. But inside the Bluebird Diner, something had shifted. Something small and fragile and impossibly powerful. A single act of kindness, witnessed by the one person who had the power to change everything. Zoe Lewis sat in the back of her hired car, staring out at the city lights blurred by rain. Her phone buzzed with another message from her attorney, but she didn't look at it. Instead, she thought about a man who gave away his last $20, and she made a decision. 3 days passed before Zoe Lewis returned to the Bluebird Diner. 3 days during which she sat through emergency board meetings, fielded calls from her legal team, and tried to sleep in a penthouse apartment that felt more like a mausoleum than a home. But every quiet moment, her mind drifted back to that rainy night. To the man who gave away his last $20. To the little girl drawing pictures of her father as a superhero. To the reminder that kindness still existed in a world that felt increasingly cruel. On Thursday evening, Zoe stepped out of a black sedan and stood on the sidewalk outside the diner. The neon sign flickered the same pink and blue. The rain had stopped, but the pavement still glistened under the streetlights. She wore jeans this time, a cashmere sweater, and a leather jacket. No armor, no mask, just herself. Inside, the dinner rush was winding down. Sean moved between tables with the same quiet efficiency, refilling coffee, clearing plates, offering smiles that seemed to lighten the air around him. Harper sat in her usual spot, reading a library book about constellations, her lips moving silently as she traced the words with one finger. The bell above the door chimed as Zoe entered. Sean looked up from table 3 and froze for just a heartbeat. Then he smiled, genuine surprise lighting his face. "Back for more grilled cheese?" he called. Zoe approached the counter. "Actually, I came to talk to you. If you have a minute?" He glanced around the diner. Only 4 tables occupied, all settled. Pete gave him a nod from the kitchen. "Yeah, I've got a minute. Want to sit?" They slid into a booth near the window. Harper peeked over the top of her book, curious, then returned to her reading. Zoe folded her hands on the table. "I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me." Sean tilted his head. "Okay. The other night, when you gave that woman your last $20, was that actually your last $20? He didn't hesitate. "Yes." "And you gave it to her anyway?" "Yes." "Why?" Sean leaned back, considering the question. "Because 3 years ago, right after my wife died, I was standing in a grocery store with a cart full of food I couldn't afford. Harper needed formula, diapers, basics, and I was $8 short. I was about to put things back when the woman behind me in line, an older lady I'd never met, handed the cashier a $10 bill and said, 'We all need help sometimes.' She didn't ask my name, didn't want anything back, just helped." Zoe listened, motionless. "I promised myself that if I ever had the chance to be that person for someone else, I would. So when Isabel walked in, I didn't think about what I was losing. I thought about what she needed." Zoe's throat tightened. "That $100 I tried to give you, you only took one. Why?" "Because taking more would have felt like payment. And what I did wasn't a transaction. It was just being human." She nodded slowly. "What if I told you I wanted to do something for you? Not as payment, but because I think the world needs more people like you in positions where they can actually make a difference." Sean frowned. "What are you talking about?" Zoe pulled a folder from her bag and slid it across the table. "I had my assistant do some research. I hope you don't think that's invasive, but I needed to know who you were." Sean opened the folder. Inside were printouts, articles from local newspapers, commendations from the Seattle Police Department. A photo of him receiving an award from the mayor 5 years ago for his work on the suicide prevention hotline. He looked up. Where did you get all this? Public records, mostly. You were good at your job, Sean. Really good. The police department tried to recruit you 3 times. The FBI wanted you for their crisis negotiation team, but you turned them all down. I had Harper to think about. I know. And I also know you're working 2 jobs now. The diner and weekend shifts at a warehouse in South Seattle. I know you're 3 months behind on rent. I know Harper's school sent home a notice about unpaid lunch fees. And I know you're drowning, even though you'd never admit it. Sean closed the folder, his jaw tight. Why are you doing this? Because 3 nights ago, you reminded me what integrity looks like. And I want to offer you a chance to use your skills somewhere they matter, somewhere you can actually help people again without sacrificing your daughter's stability. He shook his head. I can't go back to crisis work. I told you, I can't carry that weight anymore. I'm not asking you to. I'm offering you a position at Meridian Health Solutions, Director of Patient Relations and Ethics Oversight. You'd work with hospitals, patients, families navigating impossible medical decisions. You'd be the human voice in a system that's forgotten how to listen. The pay is $120,000 a year, full benefits, flexible hours so you can be there for Harper. Sean stared at her. You're offering me a 6-figure job because I bought someone's soup? No. I'm offering you a 6-figure job because you have a gift for seeing people when they're invisible. And my company desperately needs that. He was silent for a long moment. Then he said quietly, Why do I feel like there's more to this? Zoe exhaled. Because there is. My company is under attack. My ex-husband and half the board are trying to force me out. They want to turn Meridian into a profit machine, and they don't care who gets hurt in the process. I'm fighting back, but I need people around me I can trust. People who won't be bought. People who understand that some things matter more than money. Sean met her eyes. You're asking me to walk into a war zone. I'm asking you to stand for something that matters, the same way you did the other night. Before Sean could respond, a small voice spoke from across the diner. Daddy, can we help her? Both of them turned. Harper stood beside their booth, her constellation book tucked under one arm, her gray eyes serious. Sean blinked. Harper, this is grown-up stuff. I know, but she looks sad, like you did after Mom died, and you always say we help people who are sad. Zoe's breath caught. Sean looked at his daughter, then at Zoe, then back at Harper. Sweetheart, it's more complicated than that. Harper shook her head. You gave the lady with the baby our food money because she needed help. This lady needs help too, and she's offering to help us back. Mom would say that's called balance. Sean's chest tightened. Emily had always talked about balance. Giving and receiving, helping and being helped, the universe finding its equilibrium. He looked at Zoe. If I say yes, I need you to promise me something. Anything. Harper comes first, always. If this job ever puts her at risk, I walk. No questions, no hard feelings. Zoe nodded. I promise. Sean took a breath, then extended his hand across the table. Then I'm in. Zoe shook his hand, and for the first time in months, she felt something she'd almost forgotten. Hope. Harper grinned and slid into the booth beside her father. Does this mean I get to see where the robots help people? Zoe laughed, a real laugh. We don't have robots, but we have some pretty amazing technology. Would you like a tour? Can I, Daddy? Sean smiled. Yeah, kiddo, you can. As they sat together, the three of them, Zoe felt the weight on her shoulders shift just slightly. She wasn't alone anymore, and neither was Sean. Outside, a car idled across the street. Inside sat a man in an expensive suit, his phone pressed to his ear. "She's making moves," he said into the phone. "Recruiting people, building a team." The voice on the other end was cold. "Then we accelerate the timeline. I want her discredited, isolated, and removed from the board by the end of the month." "Understood." The man ended the call and took a photo of Zoe through the diner window. Then he drove away, disappearing into the Seattle night. Inside the Bluebird diner, three people sat together, unaware that the war Zoe had warned about was already at their doorstep. But they would find out soon enough. The offices of Meridian Health Solutions occupied the top 3 floors of the Cascadia Tower in downtown Seattle. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered panoramic views of Elliott Bay, the Space Needle, and the Olympic Mountains beyond. The interior was all clean lines and natural light, bamboo floors, living walls of ferns and moss, air that smelled faintly of eucalyptus. It felt less like a tech company and more like a sanctuary. Zoe led Sean and Harper through the glass doors on Monday morning. Harper's eyes went wide as she took in the open workspace, the collaboration pods with their curved couches, the meditation room visible through frosted glass, and the wall of screens displaying real-time health data from partner hospitals across the country. "Whoa," Harper breathed. A woman in her early 30s approached, tablet in hand, her dark hair pulled into a sleek ponytail. She wore a charcoal blazer and a welcoming smile. "Zoe, good morning. And you must be Sean Douglas." She extended her hand. "I'm Cindy Blake, Chief Operations Officer. Welcome to Meridian." Sean shook her hand. "Thank you. This is my daughter, Harper." Cindy crouched down to Harper's level. "Hi, Harper. Has anyone ever told you that you have excellent taste in hoodies?" Harper looked down at her purple hoodie and grinned. "It's my favorite." "Mine too. Purple's a power color." Cindy stood and gestured down the hallway. "Zoe, the team's gathering in conference room B. And Sean, I've set up your office. I'll take you there after the meeting." They walked through the workspace. Employees looked up, some offering curious glances, others warm smiles. There was an energy here, purposeful and alive, the feeling of people working towards something that mattered. Conference room B overlooked the bay. Around the long table sat 5 people, each one representing a different division of the company. Zoe took her seat at the head of the table and gestured for Sean to sit beside her. Harper settled into a chair near the window with her book. "Everyone," Zoe began, "I want to introduce Sean Douglas, our new Director of Patient Relations and Ethics Oversight. Sean comes to us with a decade of experience in crisis intervention and human-centered care. He's going to help us remember why we started this company in the first place." A man in his 50s with silver hair and kind eyes nodded approvingly. "Welcome aboard, Sean. I'm Anthony White, head of our hospital partnership program. Looking forward to working with you." Sean nodded his thanks. Cindy pulled up a presentation on the wall screen. "All right, let's dive in. We have 3 critical updates. First, the FDA approval for our diagnostic AI just cleared its final review. We're officially live in 12 states as of this morning." Applause rippled around the table. "Second," Cindy continued, "we've received formal partnership requests from 18 new hospitals, most of them rural or underserved. That's the good news. The bad news is we're stretched thin on implementation support." Zoe leaned forward. "That's where Sean comes in?" He'll work directly with patients and families, making sure the human side of our technology doesn't get lost. Cindy, let's schedule site visits. Sean, I want you on the ground, listening to people, identifying gaps we're not seeing from up here. Sean nodded. Understood. The third update came from a younger man with nervous energy, Elijah Douglas, head of communications. Zoe, we need to talk about the press situation. There's been a leak. The room went still. Zoe's expression hardened. What kind of leak? Elijah pulled up a news article on the screen. The headline read, Meridian CEO under fire. Internal documents suggest financial mismanagement. Zoe's hands clenched into fists beneath the table. The article dropped it this morning. Elijah continued. It cites anonymous board sources claiming you've been funneling company resources into unauthorized projects and ignoring fiduciary responsibilities. It's already trending on financial news sites. Sean watched Zoe's face. Her jaw was tight, her eyes sharp with controlled fury, but she didn't flinch. It's a hit piece, she said evenly. Planted by someone on the board, probably my ex-husband's camp. Anthony frowned. Can we trace the source? We're trying, Cindy said. But whoever leaked it knew how to cover their tracks. The documents referenced in the article are real, but they're stripped of context. It makes legitimate investments look reckless. Zoe stood and walked to the window, staring out at the city. They're escalating. They want me rattled. They want me to make a mistake. Sean stood as well, his voice calm. Then don't give them one. She turned to him. This is a psychological operation, Sean said. I've seen it before in hostage negotiations. The aggressor leaks information to destabilize the target, force them into a reactive position. The mistake most people make is defending themselves publicly. That just keeps the story alive. Zoe's eyes sharpened. What do you suggest? Ignore the article. Don't issue a statement. Don't engage. Instead, announce something positive, something that reminds people why Meridian exists. Shift the narrative back to your mission. Cindy nodded slowly. He's right. If we respond defensively, we look guilty. But if we announce a major partnership or a breakthrough, we control the story. Anthony leaned forward. We have that clinic opening in Spokane next week. Low-income families, free diagnostics. We were going to do a quiet launch, but we could turn it into a media event. Zoe looked at Sean. You've been here 20 minutes, and you're already thinking 3 steps ahead. He smiled faintly. Crisis management is crisis management. Doesn't matter if it's a suicide call or a corporate smear campaign. The psychology's the same. Zoe made her decision. Elijah, organize a press event for the Spokane clinic. I want families there, doctors, local officials. Make it about the people we're helping, not the people trying to tear us down. And Sean, I want you there with me. Sean hesitated. You sure? I'm not exactly media trained. You don't need to be. You just need to be yourself. That's more powerful than any script. As the meeting adjourned, Harper appeared at Sean's side, tugging on his sleeve. Is the sad lady okay? She whispered. Sean glanced at Zoe, who was speaking with Cindy near the door. She's fighting, kiddo, but yeah, I think she's going to be okay. Harper nodded seriously. Good. Because I like her. Later that afternoon, Cindy showed Sean to his office. It was smaller than Zoe's, but still impressive. A corner space with a view of the waterfront, a standing desk, and a couch for informal meetings. On the desk was a framed photo someone had placed there. Harper's drawing of Superdad. Sean smiled. Zoe asked me to frame it, Cindy said from the doorway. She thought it belonged here. He turned. Thank you for all of this. Cindy leaned against the doorframe. Don't thank me yet. This job is going to test you. Zoe's in a fight for her life, and the people coming after her play dirty. But if you're half as good as she thinks you are, you'll be exactly what we need. Sean nodded. I'll do my best. That's all any of us can do. As Cindy left, Sean stood at the window, looking out at the city. Somewhere out there, people were plotting Zoe's downfall. Somewhere out there, powerful men were trying to destroy everything she'd built. But Sean had spent years talking people off ledges, diffusing bombs disguised as human emotions, finding calm in the center of chaos. This was just another crisis, and he was very, very good at his job. Across town, in a private club where membership cost more than most people's annual salary, two men sat in leather chairs, whiskey in hand. One was in his late 40s, handsome in a cold way, with sharp features and calculating eyes. His name was Hunter Tate, former venture capitalist, current board member of Meridian Health Solutions, and Zoe Lewis's ex-husband. The other man was older, heavy-set, with the kind of smile that never reached his eyes. Reggie Bishop, pharmaceutical executive, and the man who'd offered to buy Meridian's patient data for $800 million. She hired someone new, Hunter said, swirling his whiskey. Former crisis counselor, Sean Douglas. No corporate experience, no tech background. She's getting desperate. Reggie chuckled. Good. Desperate people make mistakes. We need to move faster. The board vote is in 3 weeks. If she pulls off something dramatic before then, we lose momentum. Then we make sure she doesn't. Reggie leaned forward. I have people who can dig into this Douglas character. Everyone has secrets. We just need to find his. Hunter smiled. Do it, and make it public. They raised their glasses in a silent toast. Neither of them noticed the young woman sitting 2 tables away, pretending to read a magazine but recording every word on her phone. Her name was Ella White, junior investigative reporter for the Seattle Tribune. And she'd just found her next story. The Spokane clinic opened on a gray Saturday morning. The kind of day where the sky pressed down low and heavy, threatening rain, but never quite delivering. The building itself was modest, a renovated community center in a neighborhood where chain-link fences outnumbered white picket ones, where corner stores had bars on the windows, and where hope often felt like a luxury no one could afford. But inside, the clinic glowed with warmth. Freshly painted walls in soft blues and greens, child-sized chairs in the waiting room, exam rooms equipped with Meridian's diagnostic technology, sleek tablets connected to AI systems that could detect illnesses conventional doctors might miss. And best of all, it was free. Completely, unconditionally free. Zoe stood near the entrance, shaking hands with families, thanking volunteers, speaking with local officials. She wore a simple navy dress and minimal jewelry, nothing flashy, nothing that screamed billionaire. Just a woman who believed in what she'd built. Sean stood beside her, Harper tucked close to his side. He watched Zoe interact with a young mother holding a toddler, saw the way she crouched down to the boy's level and asked his name, saw the way the mother's shoulders relaxed when Zoe promised her that her son would get the care he needed. This was why she fought. Not for shareholders or stock prices, but for moments like this. A camera crew from the local news station set up near the front desk. Elijah hovered nearby, coordinating interviews, managing the press. Everything was going according to plan, until it wasn't. At 10:30, a black SUV pulled up outside the clinic. 2 men in suits stepped out, followed by a woman carrying a briefcase and a look of cold determination. Cindy appeared at Zoe's elbow, her voice low. We have a problem. Zoe followed her gaze. Who are they? Legal team. representing the Meridian Board, or more specifically, Hunter's faction. Sean's instincts sharpened. What do they want? Nothing good, Cindy muttered. The woman with the briefcase approached Zoe directly, ignoring the families, the volunteers, the cameras. Dr. Lewis, I'm Patricia Vance, representing the Meridian Health Solutions Board of Directors. I'm here to serve you with a formal notice of suspension pending investigation into allegations of financial misconduct and breach of fiduciary duty. Zoe didn't move. You're serving me legal papers at a clinic opening? In front of families? Patricia's expression didn't change. The timing is regrettable, but the board insisted on immediate action. Sean stepped forward, his voice calm but firm. Ma'am, this is a public health event. Whatever business you have can wait until Monday. Patricia glanced at him dismissively. And you are? Someone who knows harassment when he sees it. Her eyes narrowed. This is a legal proceeding, Mr. Douglas. I suggest you stay out of it. Sean's jaw tightened. She knew his name. They'd done their homework. Zoe took the envelope from Patricia's hand, her expression unreadable. I'll review this with my attorneys. Now please leave. One more thing, Patricia said, pulling out a tablet. We've been authorized to conduct an immediate audit of this facility's funding sources and operational expenses. You're required to provide access to all financial records related to this clinic within 48 hours. Cindy stepped forward. That's absurd. This clinic was funded through a separate nonprofit foundation, completely independent of Meridian's corporate structure. Patricia smiled thinly. Then, the records should be easy to produce. She handed Cindy a second envelope and turned to leave. But as she walked past the waiting families, she paused and spoke just loud enough for the news cameras to hear. It's unfortunate when public resources are mismanaged. I hope for everyone's sake that Dr. Lewis can account for every dollar. The implication hung in the air, like poison. Zoe's hands trembled with barely contained fury, but she didn't respond. She simply watched Patricia and her team leave. The moment the SUV pulled away, the news reporter approached, microphone extended. Dr. Lewis, can you comment on the allegations of financial misconduct? Zoe turned to face the camera, and Sean saw something remarkable happen. The anger vanished, replaced by calm resolve. I can, she said evenly. Meridian Health Solutions has always operated with complete transparency and accountability. Every dollar we spend goes toward our mission, saving lives and improving health outcomes for underserved communities. The clinic behind me is proof of that commitment. These allegations are politically motivated, designed to distract from the real story, which is that 20 families will receive free medical care today because of the work we do. I welcome any legitimate audit, and I'm confident the truth will speak for itself. The reporter pressed. But the board is calling for your suspension. The board doesn't speak with one voice. Many members support our mission. This action represents a small faction with a different agenda. I respect the process, and I'll cooperate fully. In the meantime, we're opening this clinic today as planned. She turned and walked back inside, ending the interview on her terms. Sean followed, Harper still holding his hand. Inside, Cindy pulled them into a side office and closed the door. They're trying to destroy you publicly, she said. Zoe nodded. I know. And they're using this clinic to do it because they know I can't defend myself without looking defensive. Sean leaned against the desk, thinking. They knew we'd be here today. They knew about the press. This wasn't coincidence. Someone on our team is feeding them information, Cindy said. Or someone's been watching us, Sean countered. Surveillance, digital tracking, intercepted emails. If Hunter has the resources, he has the access. Zoe looked at him. You sound like you've dealt with this before. I worked with law enforcement on stalking cases. The psychology is similar. Powerful people who can't control someone directly will try to control the narrative around them instead. Harper, who'd been quiet until now, spoke up. Like when Tommy spread rumors about me at school because I wouldn't let him copy my homework. All three adults turned to her. Sean crouched down. What did you do about Tommy? I told the truth, and I didn't let him make me scared. Sean smiled and kissed her forehead. Then he stood and looked at Zoe. She's right. We tell the truth, document everything, and we don't let them make us scared. But we also need to be smart. If they're willing to ambush you at a clinic opening, they're willing to do worse. Zoe's phone buzzed. She looked at the screen and her face went pale. What is it? Cindy asked. Zoe turned the phone around. On the screen was a news alert from the Seattle Tribune. Meridian CEO's new hire, crisis counselor or con artist. Questions surround Sean Douglas's past. Sean felt his stomach drop. Zoe clicked the article. The reporter, Ella White, had written a detailed expose questioning Sean's credentials, suggesting he'd been forced to resign from his crisis counselor position under mysterious circumstances, implying he'd been fired rather than resigned voluntarily after his wife's death. It was all lies. Twisted half-truths designed to make him look untrustworthy. Harper looked up at her father. Daddy, what does it say? Sean's voice was tight. Nothing true, sweetheart. But the damage was done. Within minutes, the story was being shared across social media, picked up by tech blogs, amplified by Zoe's enemies. Cindy read from her phone. Hunter Tate just issued a statement calling your hiring another example of Zoe Lewis's reckless judgment. Zoe's hands clenched. They're not just coming after me anymore. They're coming after everyone around me. Sean met her eyes. Then we fight back. Together. Outside, a car idled across the street from the clinic. Inside, Reggie Bishop watched through tinted windows, a satisfied smile on his face. Phase 2 complete, he said into his phone. She's isolated, her credibility's shot, and her new golden boy is toxic. Now we move to the final phase. On the other end, Hunter Tate's voice was cold. Make it clean. I want her out by the end of the month. Consider it done. The car pulled away, disappearing into Spokane traffic. Inside the clinic, Zoe, Sean, and Cindy stood together, surrounded by legal threats and public attacks, but not yet broken. Harper tugged on Sean's hand. Are we still helping the sad lady? Sean looked at Zoe, then back at his daughter. Yeah, kiddo, we are. Because walking away had never been an option. Not for either of them. The call came at 2 a.m. Sean jerked awake to the sound of his phone vibrating on the nightstand. Harper slept soundly in the next room of their small apartment, undisturbed. He grabbed the phone, saw Zoe's name on the screen, and answered immediately. Sean, I need you to meet me, now. Her voice was strained, urgent. What happened? Not over the phone. There's a coffee shop on Pike Street, Arabica Moon. 20 minutes. The line went dead. Sean dressed quickly, checked on Harper. She was safe, sleeping peacefully. Then texted his neighbor, Mrs. Chen, asking her to listen for Harper through the thin walls. She responded immediately, with a thumbs up. The elderly woman had become their guardian angel over the past 3 years. The streets were empty at this hour, slick with recent rain, reflecting the amber glow of streetlights. Sean drove his aging Honda across town, his mind racing through possibilities. None of them good. Arabica Moon was one of those 24-hour places that catered to insomniacs, night shift workers, and people with nowhere else to go. Zoe sat in a corner booth, her hair pulled back messily, wearing jeans and an oversized sweater. No makeup, no armor, just exhaustion. Sean slid into the booth across from her. "Talk to me." She pushed a laptop across the table. On the screen was an email chain, dozens of messages between Hunter Tate and Reggie Bishop. The subject line read, "Meridian Acquisition Timeline." Sean read in silence, his jaw tightening with each line. The emails outlined a months-long conspiracy. Hunter and Reggie had been planning to force Zoe out, install Hunter as interim CEO, then sell the company and all its patient data to Bishop Pharmaceutical for $1.2 billion. The data would be used to target vulnerable patients with expensive medications, turning Meridian's life-saving technology into a profit extraction machine. "How did you get these?" Sean asked. "Ella White, the reporter who wrote the hit piece about you. She contacted me 3 hours ago. Turns out she's been investigating Hunter for months. The article about you was assigned by her editor, who's on Bishop Pharmaceutical's payroll. But Ella's been playing both sides, gathering evidence." Sean looked up. "Why would she help you now?" Zoe's voice cracked. "Because she lost her brother to treatable cancer. He couldn't afford the medications that might have saved him. When she found out what Hunter and Reggie were planning to do with Meridian's data, she couldn't stay silent anymore." Sean scrolled through more emails. One phrase appeared repeatedly: "the Douglas problem." He clicked on a thread. His stomach turned. Hunter had hired a private investigator to dig into Sean's past, specifically his wife's death. The investigator had found the police report from the accident, Emily's toxicology results, the fact that Sean had been unreachable for 3 hours that night because he'd been on a crisis call. They were planning to imply that Sean's negligence had contributed to his wife's death, that he'd prioritized work over family, that he was an unfit father. "They're going to destroy you to get to me," Zoe whispered. Sean closed the laptop, his hands shaking with controlled rage. "Let them try. Sean, they'll drag Emily's memory through the mud. They'll question your custody of Harper. This isn't just about careers anymore. This is personal." He met her eyes. "It's been personal since the moment you offered me a second chance. Since the moment Harper asked if we could help you. I knew what I was walking into." "No, you didn't. Nobody could have known it would go this far." Sean leaned forward. 3 years ago, I made a promise at Emily's funeral. I promised her I would raise Harper to believe the world could still be good. That kindness mattered. That standing up for what's right was worth the cost. If I walk away now because it's hard, what does that teach my daughter?" Zoe's eyes filled with tears. "I can't ask you to sacrifice everything for this." "You're not asking. I'm choosing." They sat in silence, the weight of the decision settling between them. Finally, Zoe spoke. "Ella has enough evidence to expose Hunter and Reggie publicly. But if we go to press, it becomes a war. Legal battles, media scrutiny, years of fighting. And if we don't, we take it to the board directly, call an emergency meeting, present the evidence privately. Give them a chance to remove Hunter and Reggie quietly without destroying the company's reputation." Sean nodded slowly. "That's the high road. It's also the riskier road. If the board sides with Hunter, we lose everything. Then we make sure they don't." Zoe pulled out her phone and forwarded the email chain to Cindy, Anthony, and 3 other board members she trusted. Emergency board meeting. Tomorrow morning. Mandatory attendance. As she sent the messages, Sean asked the question that had been haunting him since he read the emails. Why does Hunter hate you this much? Greed, I understand. But this feels personal. Zoe was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, because I chose the company over our marriage. When Meridian was just starting, I worked 100-hour weeks, missed anniversaries, birthdays, conversations. Hunter wanted a wife. I wanted to change the world. So he found someone else, and I found out through a text message meant for her. That's why you divorced? That's why he filed. But the real break happened when I refused to sell the company after we split. He'd invested early money, expected a payout. When I told him Meridian wasn't for sale, that it was never about profit, he took it as a personal betrayal. Sean understood. So this is revenge dressed up as business. Exactly. The coffee shop door chimed. Both of them tensed, but it was just a delivery driver picking up an order. Zoe exhaled. I'm sorry I dragged you into this. Stop apologizing. You gave me a chance to matter again, to use what I'm good at for something bigger than survival. Harper and I, we've been treading water for 3 years. You threw us a rope. Some rope. More like a grenade. Sean smiled faintly. I've handled worse. They left the coffee shop as dawn began to lighten the eastern sky, painting Seattle in shades of gray and gold. Tomorrow would bring the fight of Zoe's life. But tonight, she wasn't alone. And neither was Sean. Across town, Hunter Tate received an alert on his phone. The subject line: Emergency board meeting called by CEO. He smiled and forwarded it to Reggie Bishop with a single word: perfect. They'd been waiting for Zoe to make a desperate move. Now the trap was set. The Meridian boardroom felt different at 7 in the morning. Cold, clinical. The floor-to-ceiling windows that usually offered inspiring views of the city now just reflected the harsh fluorescent lights and the faces of 12 people about to decide the company's future. Zoe sat at the head of the conference table. Cindy on her right, Sean on her left. Across from them sat Hunter Tate, impeccably dressed in a charcoal suit, his expression calm and confident. Beside him sat 2 board members loyal to his cause. The remaining 7 board members sat scattered around the table, their allegiances unclear. Anthony White, the oldest member and former founding advisor, cleared his throat. Zoe, you called this meeting with very little notice. What's so urgent it couldn't wait for our scheduled quarterly review? Zoe stood, connected her laptop to the display screen, and pulled up the first email from Hunter's leaked correspondence. I'm here to present evidence of a conspiracy to illegally remove me as CEO and sell this company's patient data to Bishop Pharmaceutical in direct violation of our charter, our mission, and federal privacy law. The room erupted. Hunter's expression didn't change. That's a serious accusation, Zoe. I hope you have proof. I do. She clicked through the emails, each one more damning than the last. Discussions of bribing board members, plans to fabricate financial misconduct, strategies to discredit Zoe publicly. One board member, a woman in her 60s named Dr. Sarah Kim, removed her glasses and stared at the screen in horror. Hunter, please tell me this isn't real. Hunter leaned back in his chair. Those emails are taken out of context. Private discussions between business associates exploring hypothetical scenarios. Hypothetical? Cindy's voice cut through the room. You discussed specific dollar amounts, timelines, and targets. There's nothing hypothetical about conspiracy to commit fraud. Hunter's attorney, who'd been sitting quietly in the corner, spoke up. My client denies any wrongdoing. Furthermore, the manner in which these emails were obtained may constitute illegal hacking, making them inadmissible in any legal proceeding. Sean had been silent until now. But something in the attorney's tone, the practiced dismissiveness, triggered memories of his crisis counseling days. He'd heard that same tone from abusers, from manipulators, from people who believed power made them untouchable. He stood slowly. I'm not a lawyer, Sean said, his voice steady. But I spent 10 years talking to people in crisis. And one thing I learned is that guilty people always attack the messenger instead of addressing the message. So let me ask you directly, Mr. Tate. Did you or did you not conspire to sell patient data to Bishop Pharmaceutical? Hunter's eyes locked onto Sean's. I don't answer to you, Mr. Douglas. You're not even a board member. You're a waiter Zoe hired out of pity. The insult landed, but Sean didn't flinch. You're right. I'm not a board member, but I am someone who cares about the thousands of patients whose lives depend on Meridian's integrity. And I'm someone who recognizes a con when I see one. Anthony White raised his hand. Everyone calm down. Hunter, these are serious allegations. Regardless of how the evidence was obtained, we need to address the content. Did these conversations take place? Hunter hesitated, just a fraction of a second. But it was enough. Dr. Kim stood abruptly. I've heard enough. I move for an immediate vote of no confidence in Hunter Tate's continued board membership and a full independent audit of all communications between board members and outside entities over the past year. Seconded, Anthony said immediately. The vote was swift, 8-4. Hunter was out. He stood slowly, his composure cracking. This isn't over, Zoe. You think you've won, but all you've done is make enemies of very powerful people. I'd rather have powerful enemies than compromise my integrity, Zoe replied. Hunter left without another word, his attorney trailing behind. The remaining board members sat in stunned silence. Finally, Anthony spoke. Zoe, we owe you an apology. We should have seen this coming. Some of you did see it, Cindy said pointedly, glancing at two board members who'd abstained from the vote. The meeting adjourned 30 minutes later. The board pledged full support for Zoe's leadership and initiated legal action against Hunter and Reggie Bishop. As the boardroom emptied, Zoe collapsed into her chair, the adrenaline draining away, leaving only exhaustion. Sean sat beside her. You did it. We did it, she corrected. If you hadn't spoken up, if you hadn't called Hunter out, I don't think the vote would have gone our way. I just told the truth. Zoe turned to him, her eyes red-rimmed but clear. You've sacrificed so much for this. Your privacy, your peace, your safety. Why? Sean was quiet for a moment. Then he said, After Emily died, I felt like I'd failed at the most important job I'd ever had. Being a husband, being a partner. I was so focused on saving strangers that I missed the signs she was struggling. The night she died, I was on a call talking someone off a bridge. And while I was saving that person, I lost her. Zoe reached across and took his hand. That wasn't your fault. Maybe not, but it felt like it. For 3 years I've been trying to prove I could still be good at something that mattered. When Harper asked if we could help you, it felt like permission to try again. To be the person Emily thought I was. Zoe squeezed his hand. She was right about you. They sat together in the empty boardroom as morning light filled the space. Two people who'd walked through fire and somehow made it to the other side. Outside, Harper sat in the waiting area with Ella White, the reporter who'd brought them the evidence. Harper was showing Ella her newest drawing, a picture of 3 people holding hands under a rainbow. "Who are they?" Ella asked. "My daddy, the sad lady who's not sad anymore, and me," Harper said. "We're a team now." Ella smiled. "Yes, you are." 6 months passed like a long exhale. Hunter Tate and Reggie Bishop faced federal charges for conspiracy to commit fraud and HIPAA violations. The legal proceedings dragged on, but Meridian Health Solutions emerged stronger, its mission reaffirmed, its leadership vindicated. Zoe threw herself into expansion. 3 new clinics opened in underserved communities. The diagnostic AI platform expanded to 22 states. And most importantly, patient outcomes improved measurably. But something else changed too, something quieter. Sean Douglas became the soul of Meridian's patient relations program. He trained staff in empathetic communication, redesigned intake processes to prioritize dignity, and personally visited hospitals to listen to families navigating impossible medical decisions. He didn't just understand crisis, he understood people. And that made all the difference. Harper thrived. New school, new friends, new confidence. The financial stability meant piano lessons, art classes, and a college fund that actually had money in it. But more than that, she had a father who smiled more, worried less, and seemed to have found his purpose again. On a Saturday afternoon in late spring, Zoe invited Sean and Harper to her house for the first time. Not the downtown penthouse, but her real home. A restored craftsman in the Wallingford neighborhood, with a wraparound porch and a garden she never had time to tend. Harper ran through the backyard, chasing a butterfly, while Zoe and Sean sat on the porch steps with glasses of iced tea. "I've been thinking," Zoe said, watching Harper's joy with a soft smile. "About what comes next?" "For Meridian?" Sean asked. "For me." She turned to him. "I've spent 15 years building a company, and it matters. But I'm realizing there's more to life than board meetings and quarterly reports." Sean nodded. "Emily used to say that success isn't what you build, it's who you become while building it." She sounds like she was wise. She was. I wish you could have met her. Zoe was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "I'm creating a new foundation, separate from Meridian. It'll focus on support systems for families dealing with medical crises, counseling, financial assistance, respite care. I want you to run it." Sean blinked. "Me?" "You. You've already been doing the work informally. Let's make it official, structured, sustainable." "Zoe, I'm not qualified to run a foundation. You're the most qualified person I know. You understand loss, you understand resilience, and you understand that the system doesn't just fail patients, it fails families." She paused. "I'm calling it the Emily Douglas Foundation, if that's okay with you." Sean's breath caught. He looked at Harper, spinning in circles on the lawn, and felt something shift in his chest. "She'd be honored," he said quietly. Zoe smiled. "So, is that a yes?" "It's a yes." They sat together, watching Harper play, and Zoe leaned her head on Sean's shoulder. He didn't pull away. "Can I ask you something personal?" Zoe said. "Always." "Do you think people like us get second chances? People who've lost so much?" Sean thought about the night he gave away his last $20. About the moment Harper asked if they could help. About every small choice that led them here. "I think we're living our second chance right now," he said. Zoe lifted her head and looked at him. Really looked. And in that moment, something unspoken passed between them, not gratitude, not partnership, but something deeper. She kissed him, softly, tentatively. Sean kissed her back. When they pulled apart, Harper was standing 3 feet away, grinning like she'd just discovered the world's best secret. "I knew it," she announced triumphantly. Zoe laughed, genuinely surprised. "Knew what?" "That you two were going to fall in love. I'm very smart about these things." Sean raised an eyebrow. "Oh, really?" Harper nodded sagely. "Yep, I've been planning your wedding since February." Both adults burst out laughing. As the sun set over Seattle, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, 3 people sat together on a porch, not as rescuer and rescued, not as employer and employee, but as something simpler and infinitely more complicated. A family, still being built. 1 year later, the Emily Douglas Foundation opened its doors in a renovated elementary school in South Seattle. The building had been abandoned for years, tagged with graffiti, windows broken, a monument to neglect. Now it gleamed with fresh paint, new windows, and a garden bursting with color. The main hall held counseling rooms, a children's play area, a resource center with computers and legal aid volunteers, and a community kitchen where families could share meals. Upstairs were temporary housing units for families in crisis, clean and dignified spaces where people could catch their breath. On opening day, over 200 people gathered. Families who'd been helped during the pilot program. Hospital staff who'd partnered with the foundation, local officials, and news crews documenting not a scandal, but a triumph. Zoe stood at the podium, Sean beside her, Harper sitting in the front row wearing a purple dress and a flower crown. 3 years ago, Zoe began, I thought success meant building the biggest company, making the most impact, changing systems. And that work matters. But I learned something equally important from a man who gave away his last $20 to help a stranger. I learned that the systems we build are only as good as the compassion we put into them. She gestured to Sean. This foundation exists because Sean Douglas showed me what real integrity looks like. Not in boardrooms or headlines, but in quiet moments when no one's watching. When you choose kindness, even when it costs you everything. Sean took the microphone, clearly uncomfortable with public speaking, but determined. My wife, Emily, used to say that love isn't a feeling. It's a series of choices. Choosing to show up, choosing to help, choosing to believe people deserve better. This foundation is built on those choices, and everyone who walks through these doors will be met with dignity, respect, and the support they need to keep going. He paused, then smiled. Emily would be proud, and that's all that matters. The crowd applauded as a ribbon was cut, and the doors officially opened. Later that afternoon, as the celebration wound down, Harper tugged on Zoe's sleeve. Can we plant the tree now? They'd planned this moment carefully. In the center courtyard stood a young cherry tree, its roots wrapped in burlap, waiting. Sean, Zoe, and Harper knelt together in the soil. They dug the hole, lowered the tree, and packed the earth around it with gentle hands. Harper placed a small stone at the base. On it, she'd written in careful letters, for Emily, for second chances, for love. Zoe wiped her eyes. Sean pulled them both close. What do you think will happen to this tree? Harper asked. Sean looked up at the slender branches. It'll grow. Put down deep roots, give shade, bloom every spring. Like us, Harper said simply. Yeah, kiddo, like us. As they stood, Zoe slipped her hand into Sean's. On her left hand, a simple silver band caught the sunlight. They'd married quietly 6 months ago, just the 3 of them, and a judge at the courthouse. No fanfare, no press, just promises. That evening, they drove home together, Harper asleep in the back seat, Seattle's lights twinkling in the distance. Do you ever think about that night at the diner? Zoe asked. Every day, Sean said. What do you remember most? He thought for a moment. The moment Harper asked if we could help you. That's when everything changed. Zoe smiled. For me, it was watching you give away money you didn't have, because someone needed it more. That's when I knew the world wasn't as broken as I thought. They pulled into the driveway of their house, the craftsman with the porch and the garden that Zoe had finally learned to tend. Sean carried Harper inside, tucked her into bed, and kissed her forehead. Then he found Zoe on the back porch, looking up at the stars. "Thank you," she said, as he wrapped his arms around her from behind. "For what?" "For showing me that giving everything away sometimes brings everything back." He held her close. "Right back at you." Above them, stars wheeled in their ancient patterns. Below them, a city full of people, some struggling, some thriving, all connected by invisible threads of kindness and consequence. And in that quiet moment, two people who'd once been strangers, brought together by $20 and a question from an 8-year-old, understood the simple truth that changed everything. Love isn't found in grand gestures. It's built in small moments, one choice at a time. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.